The name whispered in hushed tones across intelligence agencies was Ghost. He was a phantom, a whisper in the wind, a highly skilled enigmatic operative for the CIA whose very existence seemed to defy conventional espionage. His legend was built on impossible missions, daring infiltrations, and an uncanny ability to vanish without a trace. From the outset, Ghost's career was marked by unparalleled success, particularly in the volatile landscapes of the Middle East, where his critical intelligence-gathering operations consistently yielded invaluable assets and strategic breakthroughs. He moved through the shadows, a master of deception and infiltration, his methods as unconventional as they were effective. It was during one such high-stakes operation in the heart of a bustling Middle Eastern capital that Ghost first brushed against the keen senses of the Mossad. It wasn't a direct confrontation, but a subtle, almost imperceptible clash of interests, a fleeting moment where their paths converged on the same objective, only for Ghost to emerge with the prize, leaving Mossad operatives with a lingering sense of unease. They felt outmaneuvered, a step behind, and a quiet question began to form in their minds. Who was this operative, and what were his true loyalties? His success, while undeniable, carried an unsettling undertone, a hint of unorthodox methods that skirted the edges of established protocols. Then came the incident that solidified Mossad's suspicions. A crucial piece of intelligence, vital to regional stability and keenly sought by multiple agencies, vanished without a trace, only to resurface in the hands of an unknown third party. This unexpected turn of events benefited no one but a shadowy entity whose agenda remained unclear, and the finger of suspicion, however subtly, began to point towards Ghost. The first seed of betrayal was sown, a high-stakes double-cross suspected, and the air within Mossad headquarters grew thick with unspoken concern. The Mossad director, a man known for his unwavering commitment to Israel's security, felt a cold dread settle in his gut. He authorized a discreet, long-term surveillance operation on Ghost, code-named Spectre. This was not merely about intelligence. It was about understanding a force that seemed to operate beyond the conventional rules of engagement. As the Spectre operation began to peel back the layers of Ghost's meticulously constructed life, a surprising vulnerability emerged. A hidden family, a wife and 2 young children, tucked away in a quiet suburb, a stark contrast to the operative's ruthless professional persona. This was a potential weak point, a human element in a machine of espionage. The surveillance also began to yield the first faint clues of a deeper conspiracy, connecting Ghost not just to rogue operations, but to a shadowy organization whose tendrils reached far beyond the Middle East. There were whispers of dark pacts, of allegiances that transcended national borders. A chilling glimpse into Ghost's ruthless efficiency soon followed, an operation where targets simply ceased to exist, leaving no trace, no evidence, just a void. The Mossad director, disturbed by the emerging picture, made a personal commitment to uncover the full truth behind this enigmatic CIA operative. A seemingly insignificant detail, a barely noticeable anomaly in an intercepted communication, suddenly raised a major red flag for Mossad. It was a pattern, a signature that hinted at a far more intricate game than they had initially imagined. The initial hunt for Ghost began in earnest, a silent, clandestine pursuit across borders, driven by the realization that Ghost was not merely a highly effective operative, but a master manipulator, orchestrating events from behind an impenetrable veil. Before we continue, subscribe to the channel and tell us in the comments where you are watching from. The Mossad team, now fully dedicated to the pursuit of Ghost, found itself led by the seasoned veteran agent, Rami. His eyes, usually sharp and calculating, now carried a perpetual glint of frustration, a testament to the elusive nature of their target. Ghost, seemingly emboldened by the silent hunt, continued his string of high-profile operations, each one executed with an unnerving precision that kept him not just one step ahead, but often several. He was a ghost in every sense of the word, appearing and disappearing with such ease that it defied explanation, leaving behind only the undeniable impact of his actions. Evidence began to mount, irrefutable in its clarity, pointing to Ghost's direct involvement in actions that were increasingly detrimental to Mossad's core interests. These weren't mere collateral damages, they were strategic blows, meticulously planned and flawlessly executed, always undermining Mossad's regional influence or compromising their assets. When confronted, the CIA, with a practiced air of diplomatic denial, attributed these incidents to independent rogue elements, dismissing any suggestion of their premier operatives' involvement. They painted a picture of isolated incidents, conveniently overlooking the consistent pattern and the signature cunning that screamed Ghost's name. Rami's frustration grew into a simmering resentment. The official channels, designed for inter-agency cooperation, were effectively blocked. Their inquiries met with polite evasions and stone walls. The truth, it seemed, was being deliberately concealed, creating an impenetrable barrier between Mossad and justice. This relentless, shadow-laden pursuit began to exact a heavy personal cost on Rami. His relationships outside the agency grew strained, his mind constantly replaying scenarios, dissecting every minuscule detail. Paranoia, a natural byproduct of such a clandestine war, began to creep into his personal life, making him question every shadow, every unexpected sound. He found himself demanding more resources from his superiors, his voice echoing with a desperate urgency. But even within Mossad, the political sensitivities surrounding an allied nation's operative made full-scale commitment a delicate dance. Ghost, meanwhile, was a master of psychological warfare. He strategically deployed disinformation, weaving an intricate web of confusion that ensnared not only opposing intelligence agencies, but also elements within his own organization. Leads would appear, only to dissolve into mirages, sending Mossad on wild goose chases across continents. There was one particularly close call, a meticulously planned ambush in a bustling European city. Rami's team had ghost-cornered, the net tightening, only for him to vanish into thin air, leaving behind only the lingering scent of ozone and a profound sense of defeat for the Mossad operatives. It was as if he possessed an innate sixth sense, anticipating every move, every countermeasure. The subsequent investigation into this near miss revealed a terrifying truth. Ghost had cultivated a hidden network of informants, deeply embedded within various intelligence agencies, including, to their horror, whispers suggested even within Mossad itself. This discovery plunged Rami into a moral dilemma of profound proportions. How far could Mossad go to expose a rogue agent from an allied nation without sparking an international incident, without tearing apart the delicate fabric of global intelligence cooperation? The lines between right and wrong became increasingly blurred. Then tragedy struck. One of Rami's most promising team members, a young analyst with an uncanny ability to connect disparate pieces of information, was found dead under suspicious circumstances. The official report cited a tragic accident, but the internal consensus, unspoken yet deeply felt, linked it indirectly to Ghost's actions. It was a brutal reminder that this was not just a game, it was a war with real casualties. The incident hardened Rami's resolve, pushing him to adopt Ghost's own ruthless tactics, blurring the ethical boundaries even further. Amidst the growing despair, a cryptic message arrived from an anonymous source, hinting at Ghost's true motives, suggesting a deeper, more personal agenda beyond mere espionage. The message was fragmented, enigmatic, but it ignited a flicker of hope, a new direction for their relentless pursuit. Within Mossad, the tension mounted, the feeling of being hunted becoming as pervasive as the act of hunting itself. Ghost was not just a target. He was a living, breathing challenge to their very existence, a shadow that threatened to consume them all. The relentless pursuit eventually led Mossad to uncover a disturbing pattern in Ghost's targets. They were not random acts of espionage or opportunistic strikes. Each operation, each piece of intelligence stolen, each asset compromised, served a larger, meticulously orchestrated agenda. The targets were strategically chosen, invariably leading back to a powerful, secretive corporation whose tendrils reached into every corner of global commerce and politics. This was not merely a rogue operative. This was a highly calculated campaign. As Rami's team delved deeper, they began to peel back the layers of Ghost's motivations. It wasn't merely about personal enrichment or the thrill of the game. A deeper ideology, almost a perverse sense of justice, seemed to drive him. He was a man with a mission, albeit one cloaked in shadow and deceit. Mossad's operatives, employing their own clandestine methods, successfully infiltrated a front company openly used by Ghost for his illicit dealings. What they unearthed was a labyrinthine web of financial irregularities, shell corporations, and offshore accounts, all designed to channel vast sums of money to the shadowy corporation. The realization dawned on Rami with chilling clarity. Ghost had been playing a long game, manipulating not just his adversaries, but seemingly his own allies, orchestrating events to serve this overarching corporate agenda. The stakes escalated dramatically when a crucial piece of cutting-edge technology, capable of disrupting global communication networks, was stolen from a secure facility. Ghost was immediately identified as the prime suspect. The theft sent shockwaves through the intelligence community, forcing even the CIA to acknowledge the severity of the situation. Internally, a small but vocal faction within the CIA had long suspected Ghost's true loyalties, but their concerns had been systematically silenced, their evidence buried under layers of bureaucracy and denial by those intent on protecting the agency's star operative. It was at this critical juncture that Mossad forged an unlikely alliance. A disillusioned former CIA agent who had once worked closely with Ghost reached out through back channels. Embittered by the CIA's willful blindness and the escalating damage caused by Ghost, this informant provided critical intelligence, shedding light on the corporation's true objectives and Ghost's intricate role within their hierarchy. This new source confirmed Rami's gravest fears. Ghost was not merely a rogue operative, he was a key architect of a global destabilization plot. The moral line, already blurred, now threatened to disappear entirely. With the corporation's threat looming, some within Mossad began to consider using Ghost's hidden family as leverage, a move Rami fiercely resisted, despite the mounting pressure. He understood that such a tactic, while potentially effective, would irrevocably transform them into the very monsters they hunted. Rami, driven by the urgency of the situation, directly confronted Ghost's former mentor within the CIA, a man who had once championed Ghost's brilliance. The exchange was tense, fraught with accusations and veiled threats, with Rami laying bare the extent of Ghost's betrayal and the devastating consequences. The mentor, visibly shaken, could offer little beyond a hollow defense of his former protege. Meanwhile, Ghost, ever perceptive, began to sense the tightening net. The constant surveillance, the subtle shifts in the operational landscape, the increasing pressure on his network, it all fueled a growing paranoia within him. He suspected he was being hunted, not just by Mossad, but by forces far more pervasive. Then came the shocking revelation: Mossad, through painstaking analysis of the former CIA agents' intel and their own accumulated data, finally uncovered Ghost's true identity. The name, when it emerged, sent a ripple of disbelief through the Mossad ranks. It was a name associated with an old, almost forgotten tragedy, a personal history marked by profound loss and a burning desire for vengeance. This was no ordinary operative. This was a man consumed by a past trauma, meticulously crafting his future of retribution. With Ghost's identity exposed, Mossad launched a series of daring operations, systematically dismantling his network, piece by piece. His informants were compromised, his financial conduits severed, his operational cells neutralized. The pursuit culminated in the first direct communication between Rami and Ghost. The exchange was chilling, a battle of wits and wills, with Ghost's voice, cold and detached, acknowledging Rami's relentless pursuit, but betraying no hint of surrender. It was a stark confirmation of Rami's growing certainty. Ghost was not just a rogue agent, but a traitor of the highest order, actively working to undermine the very principles he once swore to uphold. The revelation of Ghost's true identity, inextricably linked to an old, almost forgotten tragedy, finally laid bare the driving force behind his actions. His past trauma was not merely a footnote. It was the entire prologue to his current destructive narrative. A tragic event in his youth, shrouded in layers of political intrigue and bureaucratic cover-ups, had ignited within him a deep-seated desire for control, a desperate need to reclaim agency over a world that had once rendered him utterly powerless. This harrowing experience had forged his alliance with the shadowy corporation, not for mere financial gain, but for a promise of retribution against the systems and individuals he held responsible for his immeasurable loss. The corporation, ever opportunistic, had skillfully exploited this wound, offering him the tools and the platform to exact his revenge, all while serving their own nefarious global agenda. Within the Mossad ranks, the ethical debate raged. Knowing the genesis of Ghost's motivations, the moral quandary of exploiting his personal vulnerabilities became a heavy burden. Rami, in particular, wrestled with this internal struggle. Could he, as the relentless hunter, offer a path to redemption for a man so profoundly shaped by injustice? Or was the pursuit of justice, pure and unyielding, the only acceptable course? The lines between right and wrong, perpetrator and victim, blurred with unsettling intensity. A fleeting moment, captured by a Mossad surveillance operative, offered a glimpse of the humanity Ghost still harbored beneath layers of hardened resolve. The operative, meticulously tracking Ghost's movements through a bustling market in Marrakesh, observed him pause, his gaze lingering on a child who had dropped a toy. For a fraction of a second, the cold, calculating operative seemed to melt away, replaced by a flicker of empathy, a ghost of the man he might have been. This brief, almost imperceptible act, though quickly suppressed, fueled Rami's internal conflict, suggesting that perhaps, beneath the traitor, a conscience still resided. The corporation, meanwhile, oblivious to Ghost's internal turmoil and only focused on their grand design, accelerated their plans to destabilize global economies. They intended to leverage Ghost's unparalleled intelligence and the stolen technology to trigger a cascade of financial collapses, reshaping the world order to their advantage. Mossad, now fully aware of the imminent catastrophe, raced against time, the weight of global security resting precariously on their shoulders. In a desperate, risky gambit, Rami authorized a direct, albeit indirect, attempt to appeal to Ghost's buried conscience. A message, carefully crafted to resonate with Ghost's past and present, was discreetly disseminated through channels known to be monitored by him. It spoke not of capture or justice, but of consequence, of the innocent lives that would be swept away by the corporation's machinations, echoing the very tragedy that had shaped Ghost himself. The situation grew even more complex, with the re-emergence of a past love interest for Ghost. This woman, long believed to be safe and far removed from his dangerous world, suddenly found herself unknowingly targeted by the corporation as part of a broader scheme to acquire specific assets. Her unwitting involvement forced Ghost into an agonizing internal conflict. His loyalty to the corporation's cause, the very foundation of his revenge, clashed violently with an instinct to protect the innocent, especially someone who had once held such profound significance in his life. In a move that stunned Mossad, a critical piece of information regarding the corporation's next major operational phase was leaked by Ghost. The leak was subtle, almost imperceptible, designed to appear accidental or a product of his network's dismantling. But it subtly aided Mossad, providing them with a crucial lead that allowed them to preempt a catastrophic attack on a major financial hub. This act, though seemingly small, was a significant deviation from his calculated path of destruction, a quiet defiance against the very entity he served. The corporation, however, was not blind. Their internal monitoring, always meticulous, began to register Ghost's increasingly erratic behavior. The subtle leak, combined with his uncharacteristic hesitation on certain directives, ignited a growing suspicion within their leadership. Ghost was becoming a liability, his personal demons threatening to undermine their meticulously planned operations. Ghost now faced an impossible choice. He could continue down his path of retribution, fulfilling his dark alliance with the corporation and unleashing untold chaos, or he could seek a different future, one that honored the flicker of humanity still within him, even if it meant abandoning the revenge he had meticulously sought for decades. In a surprising act of defiance, risking his own life and directly contradicting the corporation's orders, Ghost engineered the deliberate misdirection of a critical strike, saving thousands of innocent lives. It was a clear, unambiguous betrayal of the corporation, a declaration that some lines, even for him, could not be crossed. The hunter, now fully aware of the true monster, had begun to turn on his masters. The audacious act of defiance by Ghost, while saving countless lives, had irrevocably sealed his fate with the corporation. They now viewed him not as an asset, but as a dangerous liability, a loose cannon whose unpredictable conscience threatened their entire global agenda. This unexpected turn of events, however, presented Mossad with an unprecedented opportunity. With the help of the disillusioned former CIA agent who had been providing critical intelligence for months, Rami and his team began meticulously crafting a sophisticated trap. Their aim was not merely to apprehend Ghost, but to neutralize the corporation's operations entirely, using Ghost as the ultimate bait. The lure they devised was a seemingly irresistible opportunity for Ghost to achieve his ultimate goal: the complete dismantling of the very systems and individuals he blamed for his youthful tragedy. It was a carefully constructed illusion, designed to play on his deepest desires for retribution, promising a final decisive strike that would offer him the control he so desperately craved. Ghost, ever the master strategist, approached the bait with meticulous planning, his mind already formulating countermeasures for any potential ambush. He knew he was being hunted, and his instincts, honed over decades of clandestine operations, screamed caution. A tense, global cat-and-mouse game ensued, spanning multiple international locations, each move by Ghost met with a calculated countermove by Rami's team. They pursued him through the labyrinthine bazaars of Istanbul, the sterile financial districts of Zurich, and the bustling tech hubs of Silicon Valley. Rami's team faced unexpected challenges at every turn, forced to adapt constantly to Ghost's unpredictable maneuvers, his uncanny ability to vanish and reappear, leaving behind only traces of his presence. The relentless pursuit began to exact an emotional toll on Rami. The obsession with Ghost was consuming him, blurring the lines between professional duty and a deeply personal quest. His sleep was fractured, his thoughts dominated by the phantom he hunted, the man whose motivations he now understood with unsettling clarity. Then came the devastating blow, the discovery of a double agent within Mossad, someone working directly for Ghost. This betrayal from within nearly compromised the entire operation, threatening to unravel months of painstaking work and sacrifice. Rami felt a cold dread grip him, the sting of treachery cutting deeper than any external threat. He confronted the traitor, a painful and deeply personal encounter that left him shaken. The agent, a familiar face, a trusted colleague, confessed under duress, revealing the extent of Ghost's manipulation and the web of fear he had spun even within Mossad's most secure ranks. This internal breach, however, served as a grim confirmation for Ghost. He realized with chilling certainty that he was being hunted not just by Mossad, but by his own allies, the very corporation he had served. His subtle defiance, his growing unpredictability, had marked him as a liability. The corporation, ruthless and pragmatic, moved swiftly to eliminate him, viewing him as a dangerous loose end that could expose their entire network. A daring escape by Ghost, a breathtaking display of his unparalleled survival skills, underscored the urgency of the situation. He navigated a chaotic urban landscape, evading both Mossad and the corporation's highly trained operatives, disappearing into the night like the phantom he was named after. This escape, however, inadvertently provided Rami with the final, crucial pieces of the puzzle. Ghost's desperate movements, his choices under pressure, revealed his ultimate objective. Not just revenge, but a desperate attempt to expose the corporation's true nature to the world, even if it meant his own destruction. The stage was now set for a final, decisive confrontation, with everything at stake. Ghost's life, the corporation's power, and the fragile stability of the global order. The air crackled with an almost tangible tension as Rami's team closed in. The bustling metropolitan area, usually a symphony of urban life, now felt like a tightly wound spring ready to snap. Rami, his jaw set, surveyed the digital map, Ghost's last known position blinking ominously in the heart of the city. He knew this was it, the culmination of 2 decades of relentless pursuit, the reckoning that had been building for so long. But the corporation's forces were also closing in, a third predatory shadow converging on their elusive prey. This wasn't merely a capture mission. It was a desperate race against time and a 3-way conflict where the lines of allegiance blurred with every passing moment. Ghost, a ghost no longer, but a man cornered, moved with a desperate urgency. His final mission, the exposure of the corporation's insidious network, was within his grasp. Yet, he was being hunted from all sides. He navigated the crowded streets with a practiced fluidity, a master of urban camouflage, but the net was tightening. Rami, observing through a high-definition drone feed, saw the flicker of desperation in Ghost's eyes, a primal need to complete what he had started before he was inevitably consumed. Finally, in the chaotic heart of a sprawling, multi-level shopping complex, Rami found him. The confrontation was raw, stripped of all pretense, the years of pursuit culminating in a stark, emotional dialogue amidst the echoes of panicked shoppers. "It ends here, Ghost," Rami stated, his voice a low, steady rumble, his weapon unwavering. Ghost, his face etched with fatigue and a profound weariness, simply nodded. "Yes, Rami, it does." His gaze, usually cold and calculating, held a flicker of something akin to surrender, but also an unyielding resolve. They were going to unleash a global financial collapse, blame it on a cyber-terrorist group I helped them create. They would profit from the chaos, then step in as saviors, installing their puppets in every major economy. My role was to provide the access, the vulnerabilities, the perfect scapegoat. Rami's grip tightened on his weapon, but a flicker of understanding, a grudging respect, ignited in his eyes. He had always known Ghost was more than just a mercenary, that there was a deeper, twisted ideology at play. "And you allowed it?" "I was a fool," Ghost admitted, his voice barely a whisper, a rare moment of vulnerability. "I thought I could control it, that I could use their power to achieve my own twisted form of justice. But they are beyond control. They are a cancer. My mistakes, Rami. They are legion. Just as Rami was about to respond, the complex erupted into a brutal firefight. The corporation's operatives, clad in dark tactical gear, stormed the area, their objective clear: eliminate Ghost and anyone who stood in their way. The CIA, finally roused from its self-imposed blindness by the disillusioned former agent's persistent warnings and Ghost's recent leaks, intervened, their own agents clashing with the corporation's forces. The shopping complex transformed into a war zone, the sounds of gunfire and screams echoing through the opulent halls. In the ensuing chaos, Ghost made his choice. Instead of attempting another escape, he moved with a sudden, decisive purpose. He knew the corporation's true target, the central server hub within the complex that controlled their global network. With a desperate surge of adrenaline, he became a whirlwind of motion, drawing fire, creating a diversion. He wasn't just fighting for his life. He was fighting to protect the innocent, to thwart the corporation's grand design. Rami watched in stunned disbelief as Ghost, in a selfless act of sacrifice, drew the corporation's fire, allowing the CIA and Mossad agents to gain access to the server hub. He saw Ghost fall, caught in a hail of bullets, his body slumping against a shattered display window. The corporation's plan was thwarted, their network crippled, but at a terrible cost. The immediate aftermath was a maelstrom of sirens, flashing lights, and the grim tally of casualties. Chaos reigned, confusion thick in the air, yet amidst it all, a major crisis had been averted. The corporation's leadership, however, remained at large, their tentacles still reaching into the shadows. The lingering question of Ghost's fate hung heavy in the air. His body was never officially recovered, lost in the pandemonium, leaving an unsettling void. The world had been pulled back from the brink, but the profound implications of the events, the lingering sense of loss for the enigmatic Ghost, would forever resonate in the annals of intelligence. The immediate fallout from the confrontation reverberated across international intelligence communities, triggering a cascade of investigations, frantic cover-ups, and intense political turmoil. Governments scrambled to control the narrative, issuing carefully worded statements about a thwarted terrorist plot, deliberately omitting the involvement of a shadowy corporation and a rogue CIA agent. Ghost's official status became presumed deceased, a convenient bureaucratic conclusion, yet the unsettling absence of a body left an open question, a lingering doubt that gnawed at Rami's subconscious. He had seen Ghost fall, but the chaos of the moment, the sheer pandemonium, had made any definitive recovery impossible. Rami, now hailed as a hero in certain circles, found himself grappling with a profound personal struggle. The events had etched themselves onto his soul, leaving him with a moral ambiguity that refused to dissipate. The relentless pursuit, the psychological warfare, the ultimate sacrifice Ghost had made, it all blurred the lines of justice and vengeance he had once so clearly defined. He revisited the drone footage, the witness statements, Ghost's final words, searching for clarity, for a definitive answer to the question of who Ghost truly was. Was he a villain, a misguided patriot, or a tragic figure caught in a web of his own making? Rami understood that the truth was likely a complex tapestry woven from all three. Within the CIA, a swift and brutal internal purge commenced. Those who had protected Ghost, knowingly or unknowingly, were systematically rooted out and removed, their careers ending in disgrace or quiet reassignment. The agency, desperate to restore its image and regain trust, publicly vowed to implement stricter oversight and accountability. Yet, beneath the surface, the deep-seated cultural issues that had allowed a Ghost to emerge remained, festering like an untreated wound. Meanwhile, the corporation, though severely crippled by the thwarting of their grand scheme, did not vanish. Its leadership, having escaped the immediate dragnet, began the painstaking process of rebuilding. Like a hydra, for every head severed, two more seemed to sprout, adapting, evolving, and continuing their clandestine operations from deeper shadows. They learned from their mistakes, becoming even more elusive, more dangerous. Mossad, having played a pivotal role in averting global catastrophe, saw its reputation soar. However, this triumph came with a new, sober understanding of the evolving global threat landscape. The enemy was no longer just nation-states or traditional terrorist groups. It was a shapeless, borderless entity, fueled by greed and unchecked ambition. In the quiet aftermath, Rami, driven by an inexplicable need for closure, sought out Ghost's family. He found them in a secluded, unassuming home, living a life of quiet normalcy, utterly oblivious to the storm that had raged around their patriarch. To Ghost's unsuspecting wife and children, he was simply a husband and father who had been lost in a tragic, undisclosed incident. Rami offered a cryptic message of solace, a carefully constructed half-truth about a hero who had died protecting others, knowing full well the agonizing complexity of the real story. He left them with a sense of peace, however manufactured, believing it was the least he could do for the man who, in his final moments, had chosen redemption. The world slowly began its recovery from the brink of disaster, largely unaware of the full, terrifying truth of what had almost transpired. The media moved on, focusing on new crises, new heroes, new villains. Yet, in the hushed corridors of intelligence agencies, the name Ghost lingered, a cautionary tale, a legend. Sometimes, in the dead of night, Rami would receive an anonymous, untraceable data packet, a fragment of intelligence, a subtle warning, a piece of a puzzle that only he could interpret. These fleeting whispers, always timely, always accurate, hinted at a possibility that both thrilled and terrified him. Ghost might still be alive, operating in the shadows, a silent guardian, or perhaps a tormented soul forever bound to the fight he had started. The lasting impact of Ghost's actions, both destructive and paradoxically redemptive, reshaped Rami's worldview. He understood now that the lines between good and evil were rarely as clear as he had once believed, that even the most corrupted individuals could harbor sparks of humanity. This new resolve, born from the ashes of the confrontation, fueled his commitment to preventing similar threats in the future. He would dedicate his life to understanding the complexities of loyalty, the corrosive nature of betrayal, and the profound, often tragic, cost of power. A new generation of agents, inspired by Rami's unwavering dedication and quiet wisdom, began to fill the ranks, eager to learn from his experiences. But the world remained a dangerous, unpredictable place, and Rami knew, with a certainty that chilled him to the bone, that new ghosts would inevitably emerge, forever testing the boundaries of justice and morality. A final, evocative image often haunted Rami's thoughts. A lone, shadowy figure disappearing into the distance, a perpetual enigma, forever just beyond reach, hinting at Ghost's survival, and a continuous, silent war being waged in the unseen corners of the world. Years unfurled their tapestry since the Ghost incident, each one layering over the last, gradually softening the sharp edges of memory. The world, in its relentless churn, had largely moved on, absorbed by new crises and fleeting triumphs. Rami, his hair now streaked with silver, occupied a position of quiet authority within Mossad, a senior figure whose counsel was sought with reverence. He often found himself gazing out of his office window, the city sprawling beneath him, reflecting on the labyrinthine past, the echoes of Ghost's pursuit still resonating within him. The corporation, though undeniably weakened by the global exposure and the intricate dismantling of its immediate plans, had proven to be a hydra indeed. Its tendrils had regrown, albeit more subtly, continuing its clandestine operations, a constant, insidious threat lurking just beneath the surface of global order. Then, a new, unsettling anomaly began to emerge, scattered across various international intelligence reports, a pattern of highly sophisticated operations, each bearing the unmistakable hallmarks of Ghost's operational style, started to coalesce. The precision, the uncanny ability to exploit vulnerabilities, the almost artistic flair for misdirection, it was all too familiar. Rami felt a cold prickle of suspicion crawl up his spine. Could Ghost have returned? Or was this merely a meticulously crafted imitation, a dangerous copycat seeking to capitalize on a legend? The questions gnawed at him, disturbing the fragile peace he had cultivated. It was during this period that a new, exceptionally bright young Mossad agent, Ilara, entered Rami's orbit. She possessed an almost unsettling intensity, a sharp intellect, and a drive that reminded Rami powerfully of his own younger self. He saw in her the unyielding commitment, the thirst for justice, but also the potential for the same consuming obsession that had once defined his life. Rami began to mentor her, a quiet passing of the torch, sharing not just his strategic insights, but the hard-won wisdom gleaned from 2 decades of chasing phantoms. He spoke of Ghost, not as a simple villain, but as a complex force, a man whose choices had reshaped the very landscape of their world. The new threat, mirroring the original hunt in its shadowy elusiveness, became Ilara's first major assignment, albeit under Rami's watchful eye. As she delved deeper, the themes of redemption and vengeance, which had so profoundly marked Ghost's story, began to resurface, but now with a new, contemporary perspective. Ilara discovered individuals, seemingly unconnected, whose lives had been irrevocably altered for the better by a subtle, anonymous intervention years prior. Interventions that bore the faint, almost imperceptible signature of Ghost's methods. It was as if, even in his destructive path, he had sown seeds of unexpected good. One evening, buried within a decrypted data stream related to the new threat, Ilara uncovered a hidden message, a string of complex code that, when finally deciphered, revealed a single profound piece of advice. It was from Ghost, a final whisper across the years. The greatest battles are not fought with weapons, but with understanding. And true power lies not in control, but in the courage to let go. Rami read the message, a profound sense of understanding washing over him. It was Ghost's ultimate confession, his final lesson to the world and to Rami. The cycle of intelligence and counterintelligence continued, a perpetual struggle against the shadows that humanity seemed destined to cast. Rami, however, found a measure of peace. The message, Ghost's parting wisdom, allowed him to finally reconcile the complexities of his past, to understand the man he had hunted, not as a monster, but as a tragic figure who had, in his own twisted way, sought a version of justice. The enduring legacy of the Ghost resonated through the corridors of intelligence agencies worldwide, a legend, a cautionary tale, and a symbol of both destructive power and unexpected paradoxical good. The final scene found Rami and Ilara standing before a holographic projection of global threats, new challenges emerging, old ones lingering. A faint, almost imperceptible shimmer caught Rami's eye in the corner of the projection, a signal that only he would recognize. It was a single flickering point of light, a ghost in the machine, reminding him that some mysteries were never truly solved, and some figures, even in absence, continued to shape the world, leaving the audience with a sense of lingering mystery and the promise of future. Endless challenges for those who dared to chase the shadows.